year is 2006, and my family had just moved to a new town away from our close-knit community of relatives, so my parents could undergo a new business venture. For an 8-year-old, moving to a new town, going to a new school, having to get used to a new environment wasn't going to be easy, but as he always has, my dad was very good at smoothing things over by providing me with all of my methods of escapism. A shiny new GameCube to sit right next to the PS2 that had already gotten me through so much was our newest game console. And as an added bonus, a Hollywood video set right in the middle of this new little town, and we went straight there to rent our very first titles to experience. Think of all of the best introductory titles for the GameCube right now: Metroid Prime, Mario Sunshine, Wind Waker, Smash Bros. Melee, Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader, and so many other great options that I did eventually experience over the many years that I owned a GameCube. My brother Marshall and I, however, did not settle on any of those titles that day. No, we selected what we thought was the coolest box art we had ever seen, and when we got home and put the disc in, the stunningly animated opening cutscene delivered on the promises of that box art. Menacingly overlooking a moonlit city and pumping an MP5 like a shotgun, that's not how that gun works. This radical dark character wreaked havoc on human soldiers, aliens, and even his own more colorful counterparts, while wielding various weapons atop a badass motorcycle, all while Crush 40 wailed of his treadings of the line between good and evil in the background. This wasn't just any video game. This was Shadow the Hedgehog. My introduction to not only the GameCube, but the entire Sonic franchise. My first ever Sonic game was Shadow the Hedgehog.
Can you see all of me? Walk into my mystery. Step inside and walk for dear life.
This game is bad. The same issues that plague other 3D Sonic titles are present here, alongside a broken camera, guns that are impossible to aim, and a homing attack that sends you off the map into the abyss while Shadow utters a rated T for teen damn on his way down.
Damn, not here.
Despite all of these issues, or maybe because of them, Shadow the Hedgehog is a massive guilty pleasure game for me. I've come back to it several times over the years, and even found myself having a blast with it just recording footage for this video. Not only was it a bizarre, fun introduction to the GameCube, but it also got me into the entire Sonic franchise, from the games everybody loves, to the games everybody hates, and even the games that are good. I swear you guys are just being mean. I cherish my memories of Shadow the Hedgehog just as much as I do the ones spent with many of the other classic GameCube and PlayStation 2 titles that I grew up with. In a way, those experiences, though shared by many others my age, felt individual. Emotions that are exclusive to my brother and I that can't be felt by anyone else, and only surface again when I boot up my GameCube and vibe to that stunningly animated opening cutscene. So, you can imagine how surreal of an experience it was for me to open up YouTube last week and see that the trailer for Sonic the Hedgehog 3 had just dropped, and that Shadow the Hedgehog lovingly rendered the exact same way that I remember him, teleporting all over the place, riding that same motorcycle, and kicking as much ass as he did in that cinematic, was featured front and center as the main selling point for this upcoming blockbuster, the third in a series of films that have grossed so far over $700 million and were well received critically, despite the reputation of both video game movies and the entire Sonic franchise in general. You've just gotta sit back and marvel at how we even got here. When I was growing up, the idea of a video game movie was a joke. There were exceptions, of course, but they were rare, and for the most part, these movies were guaranteed critical and financial bombs. A while back, I made a video covering the original Mortal Kombat movie, a movie that I and many others love because it did the bare minimum by just giving us something that aesthetically resembled the games. The bar really was that low for a good while, yet here we are with 2 Sonic movies, a Five Nights at Freddy's adaptation that proved to be the biggest opening for a Blumhouse film ever, multiple critically acclaimed television adaptations, and a Mario movie that grossed over $1 billion. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and claim that every single one of these movies and shows are flawless masterpieces or that I even like every single one of them. But the fact still remains that what was once considered a fruitless endeavor, trying to bring a video game to life in a non-interactive medium, has since proven to be the furthest thing from fruitless. The fact that people online now actually look forward to filmmakers bringing their beloved games to the big screen is such an insane shift in perception, considering where we used to be, and looking at their recent successes, I've been questioning whether or not game adaptations may be our new big focus, like how superhero films have been for the past decade. Before I really explore that possibility, however, I think it's important to look at some examples of recent video game adaptations, both good and bad, and really think about why this shift toward actual quality adaptations happened and what those examples that are not well received are still doing wrong. To get at the point of this whole video, we must first ask the question, what makes a good video game adaptation? I mean, that seems like an easy question to answer, right? Like, just be faithful to the games. Simple. Oh, if only that were the case. You see, there are different levels of faithfulness to the source material, starting with what on paper seems to be the easiest thing to get right. There's aesthetic faithfulness. Character designs, the look of the world, the overall visual style of an adaptation. This also can include the soundtrack, which can feature fan favorite music from the game. It's weird that it took us so long to get this part right, and some recent video game films have succeeded largely based upon their stylistic faithfulness to their games. The aforementioned Mario Brothers movie was okay in terms of actual storytelling, but they knocked it out of the park visually. Not only is it Illumination's prettiest movie to look at, the characters don't deviate too much from their original designs, the backgrounds are filled with little details, Easter eggs for diehard fans pop up all over the place, the iconic sound effects are all there, and even the score incorporates several themes from the different games here and there. Getting the look right, in theory, should be way easier now than in the past with the improvements of technology over time. I shudder at the thought of what Sonic would have looked like in a live-action film released in the 90s. I imagine some horrific, uncanny animatronic creature with dead, beady eyes and odd bodily proportions with human teeth, and oh my god, I forgot they actually almost did that in 2020. Yeah, you don't need me to remind you of this, but it is worth remembering just how much of a design disaster we almost got in the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie. The public reaction to this was just so strong, and rightfully so. The trailers, posters, publicity images, and the rest of early marketing are the first indications that we as an audience get of the quality of a video game movie, or lack thereof. If you can't get the design of the title character right, what are we left to assume about the rest of the project? Of course, you know how the rest of the story goes. Sonic was delayed, redesigned, and released to shockingly decent reviews for a video game movie and great box office success. Now, many would attribute the positive reception of the Sonic movie largely to that redesign. You could argue that the reason so many liked the film is because we were grateful that they listened to our public outcry and addressed the actual issue, and not due to the filmmaking, storytelling, and performances. While I'm not going to go as far as to call Sonic the Hedgehog a great film or anything, I would like to direct those of you who argue that toward an example of something that did aesthetically resemble the video games it was based off of, but failed to garner even a small percentage of the positivity that Sonic received. The Halo television series, also released by Paramount, has received near unanimous derision from the Halo fanbase. It looks like Halo, the intro music sounds like Halo, but if you actually watch the show, you'll see just how surface level all that really is. It's like they went out of their way to hire people who didn't even understand Halo. Obviously, it's not enough to just resemble the thing you're adapting. Mortal Kombat 2021 does indeed feature the original lineup of fighters, and it's even rated R, so we get the gory fatalities that were lacking from the 90s version. However, similar to the Halo show, where MK 2021 fails is in the story and character department. I do not care whatsoever about whoever the main character is of this movie that I'm not even going to be bothered to look up right now. There are several more interesting characters in this franchise that you could have chosen as the lead, but instead you just invented a boring one. Both Mortal Kombat and Halo have stories and characters that fans have grown attached to over the years. There's a wealth of information that you can pull from to draw some inspiration for your writing. You can use the good stories that already exist, simply making small changes here and there, or you can pull from a pretty weak story but a unique world to create something engaging. Not every single video game movie can have it as easy as Five Nights at Freddy's, where, sorry to any fans of the movie in my audience, it entirely coasted to success on the fact that those animatronics and sets were lovingly crafted to painstakingly feel like the game come to life. Five Nights at Freddy's was a big hit, but it's also a bad movie. It went halfway and reaped the rewards. Shallow references to stuff you recognize isn't good writing, but I can respect that it did try to justify certain elements of its plot, as convoluted and stupid as it is. To make a good video game adaptation, you have to be both faithful to the aesthetic of the game as well as the story and tone of the game, and this is where I do have some small amount of sympathy for these writers. Some. I've made this statement before in a previous video, but it's not easy to write a movie based on a medium where the story is often secondary to the interactivity. Yes, we've gotten some of the greatest stories ever written out of the medium of gaming, but whenever they were first starting to be brought to the big screen, that wasn't always the case. Acting, writing, visuals, themes, and all that great stuff that makes up a memorable story has only gotten better with each technological leap that gaming takes. So, in theory, when choosing what games to adapt, it should be pretty damn easy if you pick a title from more recent generations. Take Red Dead Redemption 2, shorten it quite a bit, pick out the best scenes word for word, and there you go, you've got a masterpiece, right? Okay, obviously no. There's this annoying idea, one that animation fans are quite familiar with, that translating a work into a live-action movie somehow legitimizes it, transforming it from kid stuff to real art with real filmmakers, and yeah, it's very stupid. The greatest video game narratives have already been done to perfection. That isn't to say that every single element of every game's story is flawless, but it's already inherently more impactful to a gaming audience than it will be to a theatrical or television audience because of one word: interactivity. Movies are typically an hour and a half to 2 hours long. The amount of time that I've spent as Arthur Morgan, Master Chief, Nathan Drake, or Mario just dwarfs that runtime in comparison. TV shows with multiple seasons can get pretty high up there, but it's still not close, and even then, it's not just a question of the amount of time that I've spent playing a game, it's the relationship that I've personally built with that game. Sure, you can cast a great actor to play Arthur Morgan, although you'll never beat Roger Clark in my eyes. But you'll never be able to recreate the feelings that came from me making choices as Arthur Morgan, how I influenced the story in the smallest of ways. It's not just copy-paste. If you just do exactly what the game did without the game part of it, then why would I pay to see what is more than likely going to be a downgrade of an experience? How do you take a narrative-driven game, not alter the story that fans love too drastically, keep the essence of the characters alive, properly represent the world visually, and add new things to justify its existence? Well, you can take a look at The Last of Us. Craig Mazin's television series, based on one of the most celebrated video game stories of all time, is very faithful to the game. Dialogue is nearly one-to-one. The actors do a great job in bringing these characters to life, the composer returns to score the series' music, and the broad strokes of the story follow the same path, but The Last of Us series offers us something that the game doesn't: different perspectives. For the majority of the game, aside from a very short segment at the beginning and an Ellie segment toward the end, we are in control of Joel. We experience this narrative through his eyes, develop a fatherly relationship with Ellie as he does, engage in the action and violence of this story with his hands and from behind his shoulder. The series, however, is able to leave that perspective from time to time, offering either entire episodes where we don't focus on our two leads, or massive chunks of episodes where we spend time with those they interact with. While it may seem like a strange decision to take attention away from our main protagonists at first, these aren't just pointless vignettes that serve only to flesh out the world. And they do flesh it out spectacularly. However, each moment that we spend in a perspective that we didn't get in the original game is a moment that ties back to the themes of The Last of Us, and helps to reinforce the decisions that our characters will eventually make. The scenes foreshadowing the cordyceps breaking out are horrific, adding weight to the deadly threat that overtakes the world and creating a sense of bleak hopelessness that will soon drive humanity to its breaking point. Spending the first half of the debut episode with Sarah showing the effort she went through to get Joel a birthday gift further endears us to her before she's taken away. Seeing the domineering control David has exerted over his community contrasts the warm friendliness of Jackson. We get more insight into Marlene and her decisions from the flashback with Ellie's mother. By far, the greatest change that the series makes to the original narrative is with the characters of Bill and Frank, in what is, without a doubt, the best episode of the whole series. Not only is it a complete transformation of what happens to these characters in-game, but on its own, it's a moving, beautiful piece of television that emphasizes to Joel the importance of finding love and continuing to live because of it, even in the worst of times. It doesn't just grow a brand new narrative from a character we get a few missions with and another who's only spoken about in past tense. This story plants an idea in one of our protagonists by letting us into a unique perspective. We don't control Joel here, but through this narrative we can see how he would later come to the decision that defines the ending of the series. And it's through another tweak in the game's narrative and presentation that we get insight into the decision that Ellie doesn't get to make. Henry and Sam's story is similarly adjusted to Bill and Frank's, but it still concludes in the exact same way as the game. But where I truly believe that the show improves upon this tragic moment is in the changes made to the scene before that devastating morning where Sam is shown to have turned. Sam actually shows Ellie that he was bitten, and knowing that she may hold the key to creating a vaccine, offers up her own blood in an attempt to save him. As an audience, we know this isn't going to work, especially if you've played the game. But the reason this scene exists, as Bill and Frank's story exists for Joel, is to show us what Ellie is willing to do to save others. She gives up some of her own blood to help Sam, and the following scene plays out as it does in the game, but with one more small but significant change. After Henry is forced to shoot Sam and in devastation turns the gun on himself, instead of cutting to black like the game, we cut to Ellie, and without a word of additional dialogue. Even though both Marlene and Joel do not give her a choice in offering up her life for a potential cure for humanity, we know what choice she would have made were she given one. To say that The Last of Us Part 2 is divisive amongst fans would be an understatement. I certainly have several issues with it, but I truly believe with how well they handled Season 1, properly setting things up for a continuation of this story, unlike the first game where it's clear to me that there was no intention to do so, I think they can knock Season 2 out of the park. I hope so anyway. When I look up lists of upcoming video game movies and shows, I immediately raise an eyebrow to a few of these choices because some don't have the narrative flexibility of Mario and Sonic or the already beautifully told story of The Last of Us. I'm not going to sit here and definitively say that the following examples are impossible to make good movies out of. With talented filmmakers, anything is possible, but I do think for one reason or another, some of these aren't the best picks. Minecraft is the most successful game of all time because of its near boundless player freedom. Every single experience is completely unique because each world is procedurally generated. There's no narrative forcing you to complete specific tasks. Most of the time, I'm just trying to build the coolest house that I can. How do you make something like Minecraft, something entirely built upon the idea of individual creative experience, into a narrative film? Literally the day after I wrote that question, the Minecraft movie trailer dropped, and we were all reminded why you shouldn't make some games into movies. God of War has a powerful story, but from what I've heard, the television series that they're going to be producing will be starting in the Norse era, completely bypassing the Greek part of the story that makes Kratos' character growth matter.
No.
Don't bother with The Legend of Zelda unless it's animated by like Ghibli and Link doesn't speak at all. Metal Gear, actually that could work. BioShock would also be pretty awesome to see. There's another Silent Hill movie in the works that seems to be taking inspiration from the best game in the series. I hope that's good, since every bit of footage released of the Silent Hill 2 remake makes me want to put my fist through a wall. Despite the few examples that I've pointed out here that I don't think are a good idea, there are a few that I'm interested to check out, and that's because we have been shown that there can be quality video game movies and shows, from the simple and fun like Mario and Sonic to the exceptional like The Last of Us, the new Fallout series, the Castlevania animated series, and the greatest video game adaptation of all time, Borderlands. No, I'm kidding. Come on, you know it's... Having the new trailer for season 2 of this masterpiece drop the day after the Minecraft movie was like bleaching my eyeballs. I don't think I could cover everything I have to say about Arcane in just one segment of this video, but I'm just gonna say that if you haven't yet had your mind blown by this show yet, you need to do so. Visually, dude, just look at it. Every single frame is worthy of its own museum installation. The combination of 2D elements and highly detailed 3D character models, the heart-pounding action sequences, the soundtrack that will have me vibing to one song and bawling my eyes out to the other. Each and every character in this show has an arc that will have you completely invested, all of their storylines converging in ways that seem both unexpected yet doomed to happen. Events unfold like a slow-burning wick on a stick of dynamite, ending in an explosion of emotions so powerful that there was a point where I rewatched the entire show back to back 3 times just to admire how it was all done. The best part about it is, you don't have to know a damn thing about League of Legends to watch it. I don't. I've never played League of Legends, and I never plan to. I have friends that do, however, and they've all praised the accuracy of the series in both visuals and narrative to its game. But that accuracy isn't the secret ingredient that makes Arcane or The Last of Us or any other of the examples that you can think of or good adaptations that I've talked about so far work. Ultimately, what I want to get across in this video is, when adapting anything, or honestly making any kind of work of art, the key to success will always be passion. You can see the passion that everyone working on Arcane had for the show exploding from every frame. You can feel it in every emotional line delivery from the voice actors. Every melody on the soundtrack, it's all there on display. After every episode of The Last of Us premiered, there was a companion podcast released, hosted by Troy Baker and featuring Craig Mazin, where he talks about every creative decision made in the writing of the series. I may not love the Mario movie or the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, but when I look at the hard work that went into recreating so many iconic elements that fans love from these games, I can see why they were such massive success stories. These movies and shows have people working on them that have passion for that source material and want to do it justice for the fans, and it's here that we come back to the Sonic movies. Another hot take for this video, honestly I'm not really sure if it is a hot take, I don't know, is that I like the 2 Sonic movies way more than the Mario movie. Like, yeah, they're not perfect movies. I wish the human characters were completely removed from the story and we could just focus on Sonic and his friends and Eggman, because that's what I love from the games and that's what I think they did a good job on. They aren't spectacular films by any means, but if you're wondering why they were able to make enough money to make 3 of them and why so many fans are over the moon right now over the Shadow the Hedgehog reveal while simultaneously shitting on the Minecraft movie trailer, you just have to look at who's in charge of these movies. That infamous original design could have actually been the case. But not only did they listen to us, they asked Tyson Hesse, someone who got his career started as an official Sonic illustrator by drawing a Sonic fan comic that parodied the series, to head the redesign. Hesse has remained a co-producer for each of the films since. That opening cinematic for Shadow the Hedgehog that blew my mind as a kid, that I opened this whole video by praising, those were animated by a man named Jeff Fowler, who would go on to direct all 3 Sonic films. He posted this on his Twitter not too long after the trailer featuring Shadow dropped, and that's honestly what it's all about. He genuinely seems to care about these characters, and it seems to mean a lot to him to bring Shadow to the big screen. If you hire people who actually care about what they are bringing to life, you'll have a much better chance at success than you would if you simply jumped on an IP with no real care about anything but the money that it can generate. So, are video game movies the next big thing? Well, considering how mainstream movies seem to be obsessed with IP right now, I think they have a shot at it, especially considering how the current dominant genre of superhero films seems to be horribly running out of steam. Look, the biggest success that they've had recently is a movie that spends the majority of its runtime making fun of the current state of superhero movies. So that should tell you something. Look, we're still gonna get bad video game movies and TV shows. Uncharted, Borderlands, probably the Minecraft movie. I'm always going to pick something more original to go see. That's just kind of how I've always been. But I've seen how good these things can be, and if there's enough passion out there to bring these games to another medium and even inspire people to try out said games based on their adaptations, I'm down to see where things go. As always, that's just what I think. That's my dumb opinion. What do you think? I didn't talk in depth about a lot of these movies and shows here. I seriously think I could do that in the case of The Last of Us and Arcane, so let me know if you'd be down to see me do that at some point in the future. Leave a like if you're a fan of the musical stylings of Crush 40, especially their hit song, I Am All of Me. Shout out to all of my patrons and my executive producer patron, Lapis_VA. Join the Patreon at patreon.com/MasonIDK if you'd like to chat with me on Discord and get videos early and get all kinds of other exclusive stuff. Dude, go play some video games. I'm gonna go watch Arcane again. I'll see you next time. Peace.